Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. This is no normal episode of True Crime Guys Podcast. This is episode number 5 of the Freeloader series. If you don't know what the Freeloader series is, it's where we take our oldest Patreon episodes and we release them once a month. So they're about 2 years post-dated to the original release. So, if you're a freeloader, you can be a freeloader. If you just wait 2 years for the content, no big deal. We'll keep you busy with the freeloading stuff in between. Don't get upset about it. It's no big deal. But this week, this episode starts out the same week as the October 1st mass shooting in Las Vegas. So we start the episode by addressing that, and then we go into Waco, and then eventually discuss Ruby Ridge, because we think they're all somewhat related. Not in a weird conspiracy way, just, they're related topics. You get what we're saying. You guys know. But anyways, if you guys like to sign up for our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/truecrimeguys and get all these episodes the very day they are released. But for now, enjoy this episode on Ruby Ridge that was originally released October 8th, 2017. See you on the other side, creepers.
So I guess we have to start by addressing the tragic events that happened in our city this past week.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Late Sunday night, man by the name of Stephen Paddock, 64 years old.
Yeah, opened fire on a country music festival.
Yeah, he got a suite at the Mandalay Bay. I'm sure, like we said, you guys probably know the details by now. Killed more than 58 people from all over the place. It's a tragedy for Vegas, but it's also just a tragedy for the United States. And even there was Canadians there that were killed. There was a lot.
Right.
This is a festival, and this is a very transient city. A lot of people here on vacation, mostly, honestly, on a Sunday night, probably mostly
tourists, yeah.
Tourists,
They're not working the next day.
Yeah, I mean, there was a ton of people that were victims from California. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some people from Las Vegas in there. There was Canadians. There was a little bit of a mix of everything, man. And it's so, we appreciate everyone reaching out to us and making sure that we were okay. We were home.
Right.
I was asleep. I had work early in the morning.
Yep.
I do not know anyone directly that was affected by it. I do know people that were affected. Like my brother-in-law had a good friend that was killed there. So I mean, this is a small city, so just about everybody knows somebody that was affected. Mm-hmm. My wife had coworkers that were there. They were terrorized by it. Luckily, they were okay. But like we said, man, this is just a tragic event in general for this country.
Right. We felt like it affects everyone else just as much as it affected Vegas. We get a lot of people, pray for Vegas, but a lot of these people are from all over the place.
Yeah.
And they have families. Yeah, there's a great possibility that this event affected the entire nation and probably multiple countries as far as directly.
Yeah.
Because, even a lot of the residents here are transplants.
Yeah.
They have family all over.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, man, I just get bummed anytime this happens anywhere. It does feel a little bit closer to home because it is at home. I've stayed in that casino.
Well, it makes you a little more paranoid because it happened here, but it doesn't make me feel any less sorrow.
No, I felt the same.
More sorrow.
I felt just as sad for Orlando.
Absolutely.
And it's no good, man. I can't imagine what goes on in a person's head that makes them want to commit this kind of violence on random strangers like this, and affect the lives. Like when you see mothers of 3, they're stay-at-home mom.
Yeah,
I believe from California. That one really got me when I read it. Like going through, and you have to think about it's more than just a number. 58. People go there and they put these lists up. How many more did he get than other people?
Yeah.
That just grosses me out.
It's almost like
instead of doing that, go and look at the bios and the pictures of these people that were killed, and then
post those over and over again,
and then think that 500 other people were affected.
Right.
A lot of those 500, and a lot of people that weren't even hurt. Maybe their husband was killed or their wife was killed at the event. The one I was talking about, the mother of 3, she was dancing with her husband and was shot in the head. Think about that husband who now has 3 kids that he has to take care of on his own and has to go home and tell those kids that his mother's not coming home.
Yeah.
Like his life has changed forever.
Absolutely.
And like everyone was there. Not even if you were harmed, you're still like mentally, you're never going to probably have that safety. The feeling of safety anywhere you go, anywhere outside, and so but what is good is that you see the response that's had, in Vegas. You've seen the local response, and you saw the people at the event, the way that the police reacted. They did a phenomenal job. The way that all the first responders and just like local heroes that were there, like the Marine that was driving, like stole a truck and was driving people to the hospital and saved like some 30 people.
Yep.
It's definitely like sometimes these things do have positive effects, but ultimately it's just tragic.
Right.
And so we put up a link already on our Twitter and our Instagram to Steve Sisolak, our county commissioner's. He started a GoFundMe that just, I mean, when I first donated to it, it was at like 15,000 or something. It just came up, and now it's at like 10 million.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's just, it's insane. And so if you did see our link and you donated, thank you. And
there's
also,
a lot of performers that are performing in town and donating some performers are donating 100% of their proceeds.
Yeah,
to
like Joe Rogan is
is
coming this weekend to perform, and 100%.
And he sells out every time he's here, so that's huge.
And I know local casinos, I think like the Sands gave like 3 million, you know, like the MGM Resorts gave 2 million.
Yeah.
And like, so just the community stepped up big time. There's already been candlelight vigils and stuff like that for the victims, and it's just.
And unfortunately, there's already conspiracies out there.
Oh my goodness,
dude!
I know, it drives me crazy.
It's like, I guess it's easy to believe in these conspiracies when you're not there and you're not seeing this happen very.
You don't
close
see too many locals that are doing this. It's people from out of state.
they see the effects. They know these people are not in our city anymore. These locals, these friends, whatever.
We talked about it in our very first episode about the CC's Pizza Killers, and how a lot of people acted as those cops that were killed weren't even real, like they were actors, and like they were Alan Beck, one of the officers that was killed, like his funeral was a staged event. And, and I'm like, dude, I met Alan Beck twice. Yeah, I know he's a real person. Like, and we know, like I mentioned, friends of mine and family members know people that were affected by this. It was a real thing that happened. Now, you know, and then other conspiracy people say, well, we don't say it didn't happen, but we're saying maybe the government had a part in it to take away our guns and this and that. And it's just like, can we just, I don't know, man.
And maybe
it's just amazing to me how fast that happens.
It's still a tragedy.
It is, yes.
It's like, regardless of why it happened, it's still a tragedy. Let's take a minute and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to be healthy as people, like, let's just take a minute and think about this.
Yeah. And then life is such a great experience, and then there's people that have to go take it away like that from random people. Yeah. It's a shame he didn't just take his own life to begin with and cut the charade and not have to go kill a bunch of innocent people. Right. But I think that's as far as we really want to go with it. It definitely is it's a bummer, and we will put the link to this to the county commissioner, Steve Sisolak's GoFundMe. Right now they're having meetings on how to disperse the money. You know, it sounds like a lot of money for 58 victims, $10 million, but it's like we mentioned how many people are affected and their family members. And this is going to go towards funeral costs. It's going to go towards travel expenses for people to fly to Las Vegas. Right. There's a lot of people who are affected by it that this will help out. So it's a good cause. So if you guys donate, we mentioned if you donate, send us a screen cap and we'll send you some stickers. Hell yeah. So, you know, whatever we can send you, you know, just to help out. So we're just trying to play our small part here at the podcast. We are a crime podcast in Las Vegas, so it'd be kind of like silly if we didn't talk about it and try and do something. That's true. Even if it's just a minuscule thing. But yeah, that's about it for that message. I'd rather not have to do this at all because I wish it didn't happen, but it happened. And it unfortunately happens more and more every year in this country. Yeah, it's a shame that we aren't that surprised anymore. Right. That's the scariest part. Yeah. With that said, I'm tired of talking about this. Let's talk about something else. Yeah, let's get into our episode this week. Hit the music. Let's get this going. Let's do it.
Ich bin aus euch selbst herausgewachsen.
White power! White power! White power! White power! White power! White power!
I guess everybody knows who Randy Weaver is.
I want to thank y'all for coming out here.
How many people are afraid of terrorists?
The media was portraying our family completely opposite of how I saw our family.
You know who they are?
We weren't the monsters that everyone thought that we were.
You give a man a badge and a gun, he can go out and beat you, shoot you, jail you, do whatever he wants, right or wrong, and get away with it.
We weren't just a crazy family up in the hills, you know.
The original terrorists were Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, people like that. But you see, to us, they were freedom fighters. But there is a time for violence, and that is in self-defense.
When you have a government that enforces non-law passed by your Congress, you're run by a king, and it usually ends up very tyrannical. My grandpa Harvey Weaver one time said government's just like a garden. It needs to be weeded every now and then.
If there are any questions, I'd take them. Other than that, I could probably go have another cold Pepsi. Yeah, real good music. I enjoy that. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our case this week, we decided to go with my choice, Ruby Ridge, but also it was backed up by several people on Patreon. We had one naysayer.
Yeah, it was backed up by all of Lauren's alias accounts.
Exactly. Schmorn.
I think that's a great idea.
Bjorn.
Yeah. Bjorn.
Bjorn, that's how you say it.
Yeah. So we went with Ruby Ridge. And it's a pertinent thing. I mean, we just had a local terrorist with the shooting in Las Vegas. And this is something that was happening a lot in the early 90s.
Yeah, but these are different, though.
These are different. These had more of a message behind them, and they were angry at the government and whatnot. We don't really know the motive behind.
Also, this shed some strange light on the government, some suspicious light.
Yes.
Saying the least.
Yes. I would say conspiracies involved in this, but not really, because even the government admitted they fucked up in the end.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not saying it's conspiracy. I'm just saying it shed some bad light.
Oh, no doubt. But things changed because of Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
A lot of good things happened because of the bad that happened there.
That's true.
The ugliness that was the FBI's response to these things.
Overzealous response.
But we're going to start with some related events. We'll start with the Oklahoma City bombing, because you really can't talk about Ruby Ridge without talking about Oklahoma City.
Right.
And without talking about Waco. But we'll start with Oklahoma City. Give a quick synopsis of these two things. On April 19th, 1995, at approximately 9:02 a.m., a truck bomb explosion outside of the Alfred P. Murrah building, it's a federal building in Oklahoma City, left 168 people dead and injured more than 650 other people. A massive homemade explosion.
Right.
The bomb was so powerful that it damaged or destroyed more than 300 buildings in the immediate area. It looked like a giant bite was taken out of this building. Like more than half of the building was gone. A man by the name of Timothy McVeigh would be found to be responsible for it and take credit for it. Mm-hmm. And he says that a large part of his motivation for doing this was his hatred for the government, large in part to the way that the Ruby Ridge and Waco standoffs ended. Mm-hmm. He felt that the power of the tyrannical government has gotten out of control, and this was his way of getting back, because this federal building housed many different departments within the U.S. government.
Many people probably had nothing to do with Ruby Ridge or Waco.
Right. I mean, it was like women that worked in the IRS office, Social Security offices.
Right.
Like just in general, just random people that happen to
obviously
work for the
it couldn't have
government.
been people very high up, or it would have had much better security.
Right.
Then somebody can just drive a Penske truck up into the parking lot.
Right. Now, this would be the largest terrorist attack to take place on U.S. soil until September 11th, 2001. And that would be the same year that Timothy McVeigh would be executed for his crimes.
Oh, okay.
He did have a co-conspirator named Terry Nichols who received life in prison. He chose the date of April 19th because it was the 2-year anniversary of the bloody end to the standoff between law enforcement and the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas. Now, to give a quick synopsis of Waco, we could really do 2 separate episodes on both of these.
Oh, yeah,
there's
for
that
sure.
much, there's that much to them. But I think it's just better to just wrap this all into one thing. Waco, what happened in Waco, Texas, was believing that a group was illegally stockpiling weapons. The U.S. Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms, ATF, we'll hear a lot more about the ATF in the Ruby Ridge standoff.
I'm sorry. I was going to say they believed that they were stockpiling these weapons in preparedness for a reform, right?
Right.
For an attack on the government.
This was a highly religious group that had their own compound. They called it Mount Carmel, and it was just outside of Waco, Texas. There was a very large compound that had been around since the 50s and had been taken over by David Koresh. And he was David Koresh.
Do they have like Mormon roots, kind of what they're doing here?
I don't think they were Mormons.
No?
No, they were Branch Davidians. They were their own. They were.
I know they're very Old Testament beliefs.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
they followed 2 books out of the Bible that like most people probably never even heard of.
Right.
I can't remember what they are. That's
no
how
e-
unimportant they are.
Right. I'm no expert on religion, but I know
Yeah.
that they're a big part of their beliefs was that the end was near and that there was going to be a big fiery end to things where they were
Right.
it was like them versus the government, and it's very weird because that's kind of what
Yeah.
happened.
Basically, what they did was they flipped through the Bible and found all the worst shit,
Right.
and then highlighted it,
Right.
and then only read that,
Right.
and then based their entire lives on it.
Yeah. And what happened was a delivery driver who was delivering a package to the compound in Mount Carmel found inside the package, like the package fell open and there was like grenades in there.
Oh, it just fell open. Oh darn!
I know, right?
Clumsy me.
He was digging through there looking for some
Hell
stuff.
yeah, he was.
Anyways, basically he would alarm the government, he would alarm law enforcement who would get involved.
Right.
ATF.
And these are still people who technically haven't done anything wrong, right? So far.
Right. Well, they're obviously stockpiling stuff, and the government starts to get a little nervous.
Well, that's it, though.
Exactly. They haven't done anything illegal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, up to this point.
This is
But go
Texas.
ahead.
This is Texas. People are allowed to have fucking
Hell yeah.
all kinds of shit.
Yeehaw, go ahead.
Large stockpiles. Everybody has large stockpiles of shit.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Right. But when you got a compound, and you're like crazy religious,
Right.
You combine those things with all the weapons there.
But I'm just being,
right.
politically correct here. They still have not done anything wrong.
Right.
Okay, carry on.
And so what would happen was they would obtain an arrest warrant for David Koresh and a search warrant for the religious group's compound at Mount Carmel because of the finding of these weapons. And it was also said that like David Koresh, he was not a guy that would always just stay on the compound. He would go out and about. He would go to Walmart. He'd go here and there.
Yeah,
and they
of course.
could have snatched him up. But instead, they chose to do like a raid on this compound,
Yeah.
which would end up resulting in a 51-day standoff.
And this is not a bunch of crazy like conspiracy-driven men. Like this is women. This is children.
Yes.
This is full families here.
Families,
This
yes.
is all these people had jobs in the community. There were people that weren't even messing with weapons here. They were just
Right.
helping garden or whatever,
Yeah.
keep this compound running.
Yeah, so the 51-day standoff, there would be several events that would happen, shootouts between the Davidians
Right.
and the FBI. There would be casualties on both sides, and then eventually it would all come to April 19th, which was the same date that
Yeah.
Timothy McVeigh chose for the Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
April 19th, 1993 was the day that the shit hit the fan with the Branch Davidians compound, where there would end up being a fire within and initially the FBI denied their responsibility and said that fire was started within, which is possible as well. These
yeah.
were, apocalyptic type.
Their mindset was in
David
the times,
Koresh
for
was
sure.
all about the end times, and
Yeah.
he was down to die for this
Absolutely.
cause and everything, and he thought that there was a better place afterwards for it to be. And there was shootings that were going on within the compound on that day. They were killing each other. They were killing themselves. The fire could have been started from within. However, afterwards in 1999, the FBI would reveal that some of the tear gas used by the FBI was flammable.
Yep.
And it would end up resulting in the death of nearly 80 people within the
dude-
Branch Davidians, obviously several people on the FBI side. And
Right. In certain buildings on the compound, they used so much tear gas that the coroner said the people died from the tear gas
Right.
before they even burned.
We're talking women, children.
Women and children just suffocated because they put so much tear gas in there.
Yep.
They literally had nowhere to go.
Right. And so this standoff was a big motivating factor for Timothy McVeigh on his Oklahoma City bombing to the point where he did it on the same day. The 2-year anniversary of the Waco standoff was when he did it on April 19th. But the other motivating factor he said was the Ruby Ridge standoff, which is what our main focus is going to be in this episode, because it was the earliest of these events, of these white Christian radical separatists. Yeah. They believed that the white race was was in the good book. The Bible said that
for the most part,
basically, white people were God's chosen race.
They believed that they were the true Jews. They feel like it branched off somewhere with Abraham and the original Jews and whatnot.
And now they believe the government to be ran by evil Jews.
Yeah, apparently one time somebody came out pearly white and they're like, let's just stick with this guy, and let's just keep. We'll just carry on with his blood.
Right.
And I don't know.
Which is what Randy Weaver, the main character behind the Ruby Ridge standoff, he would end up being he'd end up being a white American Christian, believing that the government was evil, ran by Jews. He was seen wearing shirts that said, what was it, something about Zog, which is the Zionist, which basically says the government's ran by evil Jews.
Now, this is also a guy that could be persuaded by a newspaper article to change his religion tomorrow.
Right.
He's that kind of guy. Like this is a guy who grew up in an unstable household, religious-wise.
Yeah, we'll talk. Let's start at the beginning with Randy Weaver.
Okay.
Okay, so he was born on January 3rd, 1948. Shared a birthday with Eli Manning and Mel Gibson.
Oh, man.
Two great Americans.
Two great Americans. The sheriff and Mel Gibson.
All I know is Mel Gibson's a great director. He made some.
Yeah.
I've got a Hacksaw Ridge poster in this studio right now. He's made some great stuff. Braveheart's amazing.
Yeah.
He also went on an anti-Jew tirade when he was drunk one time.
What about Randy Weaver's favorite, The Passion?
Yeah.
No.
Is it not weird that Randy Weaver was born on the same day as Mel Gibson, and Mel Gibson went on a anti-Semitic tirade when he was drunk one night to a police officer? You remember that?
Oh my God.
The world's colliding here.
Universes are colliding.
So crazy. We do not hate Jews on this show. I'm just going to say it right now. We love the Jewish people.
Absolutely. All the people, actually.
Right. Yeah. All people are great, man. Especially the Jews.
Especially the Jews.
One of 4 people. He was born one of 4 to a farming couple in Felicia?
Let's call it
Felicia, Iowa.
I don't know. That sounds good.
That one's on you. If it's things we got wrong, it's Michael's fault.
No, I think we hit all the possible pronunciations. So
okay, one of those.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm gonna go Villisca.
Okay.
Villisca, Iowa is where he was born. He was raised in a deeply religious family.
That changed all the time.
Yeah. However, both parents seem to have different views.
Right. Yeah. It was strange.
Which seems kind of similar to his future wife. Randy Weaver would end up marrying Vicky, a woman named Vicky. We'll get to it. But she was the more extremely Christian. She seemed like the catalyst behind what ended up happening more so than Randy.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that think she was the mastermind that kind of pushed Randy.
You hear interviews with Randy today, and he's completely atheist. Doesn't believe in any religion.
Right. Well, he's already been through them all, and
right.
He's lost family members. And
right.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's done now.
Yeah. Randy would end up joining the Army at the age of 20 and at the height of the Vietnam conflict in 1968. Did he see combat over there? Do you know?
I don't know. He was a Green Beret.
Oh, well, I would think you'd have to have
seen
that's
if
what
you
were
were
at the
thinking.
height of the Vietnam conflict and
Right.
you're a Green Beret.
You're a Green Beret. I think you're somewhere near the front lines, I would think.
He was stationed at Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina. North Carolina.
Hey, that's like...
Keep having so many references to that damn state.
That's strange. It is pretty amazing, though.
He would end up being honorably discharged in 1971. Now, the conspiracy folks that say that maybe he was acting in part with the government well beyond and into the Ruby Ridge thing and all that say that he didn't actually leave. This was like a false thing that supposedly on the books happened, but he was still in the Army and like moving his way up. And
I don't know. That's 4 years. That's like the minimum.
There's people that say that they saw him in pictures in a tank like in 1974, like 3 years after he supposedly was discharged.
Well, I mean,
the conspiracies.
He looks like everybody. He looks like Frank Zappa. So. I mean, they all look. There's probably a shit ton of dudes that look like him.
Yeah, it's just like
and plus 68 to 71. That's like I said. That's the minimum 4 years. He probably just got out honorably.
Yeah. And he started to, I think, separate from soon after he would kind of like start not liking the government so much.
Right.
It seemed like around the time that he married Victoria Jordison, what would end up being his wife a month later, Vicky. I guess they knew each other from school and like they were.
They knew each other before he was deployed.
Right, and then they got back together when he got back.
Yep.
They would end up living together in Cedar Falls, Iowa. At the time, at this time, they would have their first daughter, Sarah, and Sarah would end up playing a big vocal role in this whole Ruby Ridge thing.
There's an excellent documentary on PBS.
Done a ton of interviews. Yeah, that was a main source of that documentary on PBS about Ruby Ridge. And then there's also one done by PBS about Oklahoma City, which ties in stuff from Ruby Ridge. Both great. They were a big reason why I wanted to do this case because it was so well done. And it's non-biased, it seems.
It's really not. Like at the end, he's got just as many interviews with FBI agents and U.S. Marshals as he does family members.
Right.
And you really get the full picture.
Story.
It is awesome.
During this time, when their first daughter was born, he was studying criminal justice at the University of Northern Iowa. Still a believer in the system and the government and wanting to work in law enforcement, obviously. Right. And something happened, and he would end up leaving. And I guess it was on bad terms, and this kind of was around the time when they would start believing in an impending apocalypse. I think Vicky getting in his head and feeding him her deeply religious beliefs. Like you said, focusing on the parts of the Bible that were more...
Yeah, it's the Old Testament eye for an eye type part of the Bible.
Right.
So it just made sense to them then, and then they thought, we need to get out of here, because I think in Iowa, this is how independent they wanted to be. They wanted to homeschool their children, and I think it's illegal in Iowa.
Yeah, there was something that happened
right?
with that.
So they moved to Idaho.
Not quite yet.
That's how extreme it got. What I'm getting to.
They're building up to it during this time. They had their first daughter, Sarah, and then he leaves potential of becoming a police officer. He leaves that idea, and the two start collecting guns. Him and Vicky, they're learning self-sufficient and survivalist techniques. They're planning soon to move somewhere and become off the grid, which, like you said, would end up being Idaho. But
I picked a great place.
Right. And in July of 1978, Vicky would give birth to a baby boy named Samuel. And then in August of 1983 would come their second daughter, Rachel. And then this is when, so they've been planning this for years, stockpiling guns, getting more and more religious, getting more and more anti-government, becoming
more and more independent.
Yeah, more independent, and just can't wait. They didn't own a TV, and as Sarah would later talk about how their parents constantly talked about moving to the mountains and living off the land. And
like when you hear the kids talk about it, it sounds like a great childhood.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that would be nice, actually. Like, there's no video games, no TV. They played board games together. They hunted together. They they built forts outside.
You're jumping ahead a little bit. So in August,
we're talking about childhood.
Yeah, but the parts you're talking about were once they got to the cabin, because they're still in Iowa. But in August of 1983, Randy and Vicky would purchase a 20-acre piece of land in the northern part of Idaho, the very fucking tip of Idaho, like Canadian
really
border.
Is.
Like,
Idaho has like that chimney that heads up north. They're at the top of they're the smoke out of the chimney.
Exactly. And they literally bought a 20-acre piece of land at the top of a fucking mountain.
Yeah.
I've heard other podcasts talk about this case, and I've seen documentaries and stuff, and like, you really cannot, like, no one's displayed how desolate this is enough. Like, you can't, literally, like, I didn't know you could buy pieces of land at the top of a mountain like this.
Absolutely.
It's insane. Like, when you see like movies like what's the one with Leo where he's like fucking gets eaten by the bear, the Revenant. You see those sprawling shots across the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, they're at the top of one of those mountains, and they built a fucking like plywood cabin at the top of this thing.
Yeah, there's places in North Carolina like that, in Western North Carolina,
like it's
Eastern Tennessee.
You hear about how Randy would end up getting into like arguments and like disputes with neighbors. I'm like, where the fuck are the neighbors? 10 miles away? Like, how could you annoy a neighbor when you live at the top of a goddamn mountain? Your cougars getting mad at you.
Hey, your dog's shit in my yard again.
You got bullhorns yelling at each other. What the fuck? Like, I think maybe the bears, you kept a bear up late at night and it's fucking submitting the complaints. Or what the fuck, man?
Quit dumping your slopper in the woods. You're attracting the bears, you asshole.
Right. Exactly, man.
What?
Exactly. Yeah, so they would, around 1983, they bought this piece of land and they would construct what would end up being the family's home out of scrap wood from nearby lumber yards.
Yeah, like the way this sounds, I expect it to be a real shithole.
It didn't look so bad.
It's not so bad.
It didn't look so bad.
A little bit of paint.
Right.
Hey, a little bit of siding. This place would be the shit.
Yeah, the what's that show? The Alaskan family that lives out there on a fucking plot of land.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like, it's unfinished, so it doesn't look like, it doesn't have stucco and stuff, but it's like a full-on house. It's 2 stories. It's a nice place.
Yeah.
And they would, like, this is where the childhood you talked about, where they have these fond memories of, Sarah and young, what's his name? Samuel, young Sammy, playing together, and they all depended on each other for their survival. It was all hard work. Like, every day was just doing all the things. They didn't have running water. Like, they didn't have electricity.
No indoor plumbing, no electricity.
Right.
Had to wash the clothes, like, in the creek. Or
there was a
wash
town that was, like 6 miles away, like down like
there was a general
road
store 6 miles away. It's like where I live.
Right.
The town's like an hour away, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
But they probably wouldn't go down there a whole lot. They would mainly stay up at their cabin. It was a lot of board games and
right. Well, all the stuff that they'd been studying up till here really came in handy as far as farming, and they would hunt on the land.
Yeah.
There's no hunting season there. It's like every season is hunting season.
Right. A lot of shooting going on, and that was some of the disputes they would get into with. Like I said, I don't know how they have neighbors. They managed to get into it with one neighbor that they had.
Right.
And that would be a big catalyst to the bad events that would come, some say.
Yeah. Well, these kids were trained to use guns at like 8, 9 years old.
Right.
Walking around with a 22 on their back, at this age. That was just normal. It was not only allowed, it was mandatory, because there's animals out here, they didn't want the kids running into, wolves or whatnot. So.
Yep. Yeah, the Weaver children would be homeschooled.
You think?
Yeah, exactly. And sometime in the mid-1980s, the Weavers taken a teenager named Kevin Harris. He would end up being like Randy would end up calling him the stepson, and like he'd be like stepbrother and sister to
I wonder
Sarah.
where did they meet Harris at? I didn't find.
I'm not sure.
Maybe he was in some of the meetings they were going to.
But he's another kid that's a little old. I think he's a little older than Sam.
Yeah.
And he's
quite
also
a bit older than Sam.
Like gun toter.
Yeah.
You know, by this time, Randy's views were becoming, it seemed, more racist. And he's using the Bible as a means to justify. That's what's so crazy about the Bible. Is like it almost seems like if you want to believe something, you can find parts. Yeah, you can find parts in the Bible to justify them, and that's what they were doing.
About anything. Yeah.
Yeah, Randy began hanging out at the Aryan Nation's headquarters that was about 60 miles south of his home in Ruby Ridge.
Where else is he going to go to meet friends, Lauren?
Hey,
that's the way they make it out in the documentaries, don't they? They're like, he was just looking for friendship, and
God, when you see the footage of this place, though,
oh God, it's so creepy.
It is so creepy.
It is so creepy.
That old white guy that was like the leader.
He looks like a reverend.
Oh, I forget his name, but
it's creepy.
He's so fucking creepy, man. Like if you've seen the movie Red State, like it's about Waco, but it's like kind of like that kind of level of creepiness, or a really good movie about white supremacists and white separatists in Oregon, horror movie that came out a couple of years ago. What the hell is it called? Green Room.
Oh, okay.
Green Room is a great movie, and they've got like deep in the woods, they've got a white supremacist hangout, and
that's what this place looked like.
Patrick Stewart from Star Trek and stuff plays the old creepy leader of this white supremacist group in Green Room. Highly recommend that movie. It's so intense.
I bet that is.
Especially it being like Halloween season, you know. It's not, I wouldn't say call it a horror movie. It is technically, but it's more of a thriller. Mm-hmm. But it gives you, I think, the sense that like this camp 60 miles south of the Weaver's place.
Yeah.
Very, like there's dudes walking around literally in like neo-Nazi memorabilia.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the arm sashes and everything.
Yeah. Like it's just like, you losers. Like,
and then get
a life. Like, obviously you're cowards too, because you're up in the middle of the woods where no black person's ever going to stumble across this place. Like,
right.
And then you're all empowered.
Yeah.
You know, but honestly.
And also what made it really pathetic for me, sorry to cut you off, but what made it really pathetic for me was there were people that weren't even Christians that didn't even follow their so-called biblical preachings, and they accepted them with open arms. As long as you were racist, you could come in.
Right.
Like
they literally had a sign at the gate that said whites only. Like it's that.
You could be a devil worshiper, but if you're whites only, come on in. You know, your family.
Right.
But they try to base everything on the Bible and these scriptures and things.
Yes.
That's what's so creepy about it.
And it's also very apocalyptic. It's very apocalyptic. Their whole message was that the white race was going to become extinct, that we were being outbred by other races and stuff like. I'm saying we. I'm not one of these motherfuckers. Okay, calm down.
Are we, Lord?
No, definitely not. I'm just a white guy.
Okay.
Okay. But like we as a white race, we're being outbred and all this stupid shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, okay, if we are, what's going to happen? You know?
Dude, we're all going to be like light brown
it's gonna
before
be
long anyways.
Honestly, everybody's mingling, and that's fucking cool with me. That's fine. It's totally cool. I'm not going to go up in the woods and like, you're over there, we're over here. I like it over here, you like it over there. Stay away from me.
Yeah. And keep your dog, too.
But honestly, most of them were, in the sense, like, harmless in a sense that they just wanted to be left to themselves. That's fine, you fucking morons. Go out there and do what you want to do. Walk around in your fucking Nazi shit.
And that's how
as long as you're not actively harming anyone.
Right.
Where it went bad was that they had a group of guys within that Aryan Nations compound. They were calling themselves the Order, and it was led by a guy named Bob Matthews. He had gathered together a group of guys that were kind of like this Aryan Nations compound. They weren't about action. They were all talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Order, these young guys, the Order, they were like,
they were different.
They were like, we're gonna do shit, and they were kind of on the down low. They were doing a bunch of shit.
Yeah,
I don't even know that like the leaders of
I would call them the radicals of the Aryan Nation for sure.
Yeah, they were about action. They were actively committing robberies, small bombings, and where it really caught the eye of like the public was when they assassinated a Jewish radio personality by the name of Alan Berg in Denver, Colorado. If you watch footage of Alan Berg, he seemed like he's really good at what he did. He's really good at pissing off the radical right.
Oh, okay.
He would go. He had his own radio show, and he would take callers from these dummies
and just roast them.
And just roast them. Like, you say, you can't be American unless you're Christian, and blah blah blah. And like, you can't be a Jewish American, and like, and he would just hang up on them and make them look like fools. Well, they got together an assassination squad. The Order did. And from Idaho, up at the top of Idaho, they sent people down to Denver and actually shot Alan Berg in his driveway when he was getting in his car one morning and killed him. And so these things, you got to know that already the government, FBI, is keeping an eye on this Aryan Nations compound.
Yeah.
But now that these things are happening...
That was the main area of focus.
Right.
They weren't worried about the Weavers. because the Weavers weren't doing anything wrong at this point.
Right. However, so what happens is they're keeping an eye on the Aryan Nation's compound, and now they're starting to get a little more intense with their surveillance of this compound because of what the Order's doing.
Exactly.
And so they end up getting
an undercover agent.
Into the compound.
Right.
And basically, he was already one of those guys, though. His name was Kenneth Fatterly, a.k.a. Gus Magazzano. He was turning on people in the Aryan Nation. He had been charged with illegally selling firearms, but made a deal with the ATF so he wouldn't have to serve time. So he was one of them. The ATF got him for a firearms charge, and they started using him as an informant to get inside the Aryan Nations.
Right.
Which is what they tried to do with Randy Weaver. When Randy Weaver starts coming around, he's the new guy at the compound.
I think Gus wanted to pass the torch because Gus got caught in the same trap that Randy got caught in before, and he's probably thinking, I want out. This is getting dangerous, and the FBI and the ATF is like, okay, you find a replacement, and then you can get out. We need somebody to do our bidding in there.
That's possible. So what this guy does is he's been hanging out around the compound for a couple of years,
right?
But I'm sure the people that have been there for a long time kind of like are a little more weary of the guy.
Yeah, he's still not accepted into the circle.
Yeah, he's not able to sucker them the way he was. Randy was a new guy, and he starts getting in tight with Randy, and Randy considered him a friend, liked the guy, and after a while, this guy comes up to Randy and asks him if he could, maybe Randy could saw off some shotguns for him.
Right.
And that was his plan. He was going to have Randy sell him some illegal firearms.
Yep.
Basically, the shotguns were legal, but once you cut them down to a certain length, the barrels, they become illegal. And he asked him to cut them down just below the legal limit.
Of course.
So that they could get him on this firearms charge and try to make him into an informant.
And now Randy...
So it's entrapment, basically, is what's happening here.
And also, it was very tempting for Randy because, he's living off the land. He doesn't have steady work. And so anytime they can get a little bit of cash, it helps. Yeah, they're completely independent and off the grid, but it still helps to have money. There's certain things that you can't make.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, his family was in a tough way here. So this was very tempting for him. So you got to think about that way too. Randy's not just like somebody looking to make money on the black market. Like he was in kind of a desperate situation.
Right. And so Randy agrees, and in 1989, he sells the 2 sawed-off shotguns to Fatterly illegally. Now, these were cut like a quarter of an inch below the legal limit. It's not like we're talking pocket shotguns here. Like it was literally like a quarter of an inch is what this whole thing began.
That could be the width of a saw blade.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to think this is like a quarter of an inch on a shotgun barrel is what spawned this whole thing.
Yep.
So...
Wow, you're getting deep on us.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So this gave the ATF leverage against Randy. They brought him in, and they offered him to become an informant for the ATF and infiltrate the compound and basically just let them know what the things that are going on, who's doing what, maybe if you can get one of the Order to give up some information, blah, blah, blah. Of course, Randy being Randy,
he's like, go to hell.
Anti-government, says, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
How about I don't do that and also fuck you?
Right. Vicky would write the Aryan Nation a letter to inform them and warn them about the ATF trying to infiltrate their group.
Vicky was writing a lot of letters.
She was.
She was quite the letter writer. And they looked good, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, she had
amazing penmanship.
Really good handwriting.
That's right.
Very beautiful cursive.
Yeah. Very, very colorful with her word choice as well. She could really paint a picture.
Yeah.
She spent a lot of time in the Bible.
Yeah.
I could tell.
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Yeah, didn't she use she said something like
Queen of Babylon.
Queen of Babylon in one of her letters? Yeah, that was one that she wrote.
That was common language for the Aryan Nation, though.
Yeah.
Then they spoke like that. They wanted
very Old Testament.
Wanted to feel very superior, I think, I think that's part of the appeal to speaking that way.
Right. In December of 1990, Randy would be indicted on federal firearms charges. Of course, he's not planning on doing it. He's not planning on actually showing up.
Right.
And in January of 1991, the ATF would stage, so this is a year goes by,
right?
And the ATF would stage a breakdown along a road near Randy's house, and Randy, being a nice guy, pulls over and tries to help him. Very Bonnie and Clyde type situation here.
Yeah, it is.
And they would slam his face into the snow. I guess it was a snowy day, and Sarah described this in an interview later on.
Yep.
How they got pulled over, and of course the kids don't know what the hell's going on. All of a sudden, her dad's getting slammed face first in the snow and arrested.
Yep.
And he would be arrested, and he would end up posting bail the next day. They put a property bail of $10,000, so basically they're threatening to take his house if he didn't show up to court.
Right.
They set a court date. And the court date was for February 20th, 1991. And of course,
But he received a letter that said March. They got the date wrong.
yeah,
So he didn't really know when to go, but not like it mattered.
He wasn't gonna go.
He wasn't going, but still, that kind of gave them a little wiggle room to fight this.
and also, how are they getting these letters to his cabin at the top of a mountain? Because no one's bringing them up there. They know,
Messenger pigeon.
right?
Yeah.
His lawyer, I guess there was a breakdown between the lawyer who was supposed to bring these messages from the court.
Mm-hmm.
When the court date was changed, it's highly believed that the lawyer never like notified him because he couldn't just pick up a phone call him. They didn't have
Right.
Weavers didn't have a phone.
Right.
They didn't have the internet.
Nope.
They didn't have any. There was no emails, and
Internet
it was
wasn't even
basically
invented.
you would have to drive to the top of this rocky dirt road to the
Yeah.
top of this mountain where there are all the gun toters and
Yeah.
the dogs are up there, and bring the letter and serve him the new court date.
Right.
From the
And he's got kids walking around with rifles on their backs around their property, dogs.
Yeah, so you can see the reluctance from the lawyer standpoint to go up there.
Absolutely.
And so what happens is he doesn't show up for the court date.
Shocker.
His defense is that it was changed and he wasn't told.
Right.
But we know he wouldn't showed up anyway.
Nah.
And also, how else are they supposed to get you the letter? We talked about that.
Right.
Anyway, so he doesn't show up to his court date, and a bench warrant is issued for Randy and is officially declared a fugitive at this point. Now, this is where the marshal comes in, right? The federal marshal
Yeah.
in Idaho is now in a situation where he's got to do something. He's got to do something. He's got to.
Yeah.
He can't just let this
The
fugitive.
court judge is like,
you know
"Get
where
him.
he is.
Go get him. Yeah.
Yeah. The federal judge is giving this marshal shit like, you need
Yeah.
to go get this guy and bring him in, and of course the marshal's a little nervous about going.
there's
up there.
kids on the
What the marshal
premises.
does is he thinks he has time on his side because they know where Randy is.
Right.
He's up at the top of this mountain with his family, and he's not going anywhere. So
No.
what the marshal does is he starts going around and talking to everyone that knows Randy.
Yep.
And
also surveying the property at the same time.
yeah, keeping an eye on the property, keeping an eye on if Randy leaves the property,
Setting up cameras.
hoping to snatch him up there in that sense. But he's also finding out from everyone Randy knows that it's not going to be as simple as just go on up there, knock on the door, and
No.
come on, Randy, we're going into the federal courthouse.
Right.
You missed your date there. It's not going to go down like that.
Right.
And so it's like a lot of time goes by here, and there's stuff being written in the papers like. Local white supremacist is refusing to come down from
held
his
up
mountain,
in cabin on
and it
hill,
starts to look bad.
Yeah. And they're really digging into their lives here though. They're like setting up surveillance, and the Weavers have no idea this stuff is happening.
Right.
There's surveillance footage that the FBI had of like kids walking around with guns on their backs.
This
and,
is
like,
the part of the documentary that
it's so
tripped me out.
weird.
That in March of 1992, the Marshall Special Operations Group, the SOG, they're the real shitheads of this whole fucking thing, in my opinion.
I think it was just some bad decisions. It was
But
just
the
some
SOG
knee-jerk decisions.
fucked this whole thing up
They
so
did.
much worse than even the FBI did, honestly. And so they set up this special operations group, and they put up cameras in the woods looking upon the Weavers' property, unbeknownst to the Weavers.
Yeah.
This shit is in 1992. They've got live cameras in the woods. This is everything the
Multiple
Weavers
feeds.
have been talking about. This is everything. All of the
People have been calling them
conspiracy
crazy, and there's literally cameras on their property.
Right, and then we're nowadays in 2017, we all got cameras on our devices
Some
that
of
are
them are-
looking right at our face, and we don't think there's people that
We
are
don't
looking
think-
through those. Come on, I've got tape over my shit right now.
Oh.
I saw that episode.
Dude, can I borrow some tape?
I saw that episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
You seen
Oh
that?
shit, no. I've been nervous to watch that.
Okay, but in 1992, they've got live cameras facing the Weavers, keeping an eye on them.
Yeah.
And they set up this operation. Now, after watching the documentary, I thought it was one thing. After hearing interviews with Randy Weaver, it made a lot more sense what he said they were planning to do. So they set up an operation with 6 guys, right?
Okay.
6 SOG special operations.
Right. These are trained guys, supposedly, in surveillance and stealth.
They're in full camo.
And information.
Full camo. They
Yeah.
take a hike up the mountain to the Weaver's place, and they split into 2 at this Y,
Yeah.
a fork, and 3 of them go up above the property to keep an eye down, and then the other 3. Now, Weaver says that their goal here, after later like putting the pieces together, was that they were going to kill the family dog because the dog was they basically wanted to set up a sting operation where they could swoop into the house, do a sting, grab Randy, and bring him in. They wanted to like catch him off guard on the property, but if the dog was there, they were never going to be able to sneak up on him.
That's right.
And so he believes, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense, that the SOG was going to go in and kill the dog. They had silenced rifles,
shit.
and they were going to go up, kill the dog. Like
Yeah.
they coaxed him out. They even admitted they were throwing rocks at the house.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
why the dog came out barking.
Yep.
Chased these 3 guys down, and they were going to take him out on the
That
trail.
does make a shit ton of sense.
It does. And what Randy says is that the dog was shot. They end up killing the dog. Just get to what happened. Basically, the dog comes running down barking, and of course, these are the Weavers with their guns and everything. Young Samuel and
Kevin Harris
come following the dog to see what it was. Now, at the time, Sarah said that she figured it was maybe a moose or something the dog
Right.
was barking at. They had times passed. They're almost thinking like, okay, nothing's really going to happen
Nothing's
with this whole
going
thing.
on.
All he did
Yeah.
was fail to appear in court for some stupid sawed-off shotguns.
Right.
They're not thinking there's dudes that are working for some special teams.
Yeah, or they're
with
being
cameras set
surveillance
up
24 hours a day.
Exactly. They think, especially the young kids, the family, like Samuel Weaver
Yeah.
has no idea. He probably thinks the dog is chasing some kind of an animal or whatever.
Right.
He goes following the dog down the trail. The cops end up shooting the dog. Now, what Randy says, the dog was shot like through the butt, and the bullet like came out of its mouth or something. Like it was shot from behind, so there was no threat of the dog attacking them.
The dog was probably still looking for him.
Yeah, well, whether that's true or not, this is Randy's account, so we have to take into account that obviously
Could have been the other way around.
It could have been
Most likely.
through the mouth and out the
Yeah.
butt. Yeah, who knows? Either way, Samuel comes down, sees that his dog has been killed, and reacts how a 14-year-old kid would react when seeing his dog, his beloved family dog, has been killed. And
by just someone in camo. These guys aren't uniformed.
Some dudes in camo. For all he knows, it could be hunters.
Exactly.
Or whatever it was. He fires at them. They fire back. Kevin Harris gets involved.
Yep.
And basically, the first shots that were fired towards Sam hit him in the elbow, almost taking his arm off.
Yeah.
And he turns to try and run back. He's now been shot, and he's scared for his life.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh shit, they shot me." And that's Kevin Harris's account. He ends up living to tell the tale.
Right.
He says,
all this adds up.
It does. And Sam was for sure shot from behind. Even the federal.
Yep. Even they said he was shot.
They
from
said
behind.
that he was shot. So he was running back towards the house when they shot him up his back and blew out his heart, according to
corner.
No, according to his father.
Oh.
And so they end up killing 14-year-old Kevin Harris.
Samuel.
Kevin Harris fires back and ends up killing one of the special operations guys.
Yep.
Bill Deegan was his name. Would end up be dead at the scene. And so you got
Deegan
rounds.
is also the one that shot the dog. Just
Yeah.
let that be clear. He's supposedly fired first.
Stryker was the dog's name, coincidentally. Bill Deegan had fired 7 rounds from an N16. Larry Cooper, one of the other SOG guys, had fired 6 rounds from a 9mm Colt submachine gun.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Weaver was firing from a 223 Ruger Mini 14, and Kevin Harris fired 2 rounds from his 30-06, which ended up killing Bill Deegan.
Right.
Now, the groups would then part ways. Kevin Harris would run back to camp to inform the rest of the Weavers that young Sam and the dog Stryker had been killed by some guys in camo fatigues.
Yeah,
in the woods.
That's all they know. They
probably shocked as hell that this just happened. Obviously, the Weavers are hearing all this gunfire going off.
According to Kevin Harris, they did not announce themselves. According to the marshals, they did.
Right.
So, take it or leave it.
Yeah. So this whole thing escalated very quickly, and now the guys for the SOG team are kind of like staying there. They're not sure what's going on. They're afraid to head back down. They've got their guy dead. They've got one of the Weavers dead, and once Kevin Harris gets back up and tells Randy and the mom and Sarah and all them, they believe it's Randy and of course Vicky had to go down and get her son. She said we can't leave him down there. So Randy and Vicky go down to get Samuel, and apparently the SOG guys were hiding in the bushes like right next to that, and they didn't attempt to take Randy down. Randy was screaming, and obviously curse words at the top of his lungs.
And see, if they would have believed that they were in the right and what they did,
then they would have taken
their
them
story.
down, right?
If their story is true, why not take Randy? Because you haven't done anything wrong,
right? They sit there and watch them pick up their son's body and
because they know they'd done enough.
Yep,
they'd done enough.
They'd fucked up.
Yep.
But do they correct their wrongs here? Of course not. They make it worse. They go back down. They go back down. They call for backup in the sense, and they tell a bunch of wrong information to the FBI. And within 24 hours, the FBI is up there on that mountain.
Because now we have a dead U.S. Marshal.
Yes.
Now it's a totally.
They're saying we need.
thing.
The guy comes from the SOG. The marshal goes down, calls in the FBI, and says, "Bring everybody you got. We had a standoff with the Weavers. One of our guys is dead." I don't know if does he even tell them that they had killed one of the Weavers, or
no.
Doesn't tell them.
They say they didn't know that Sam was dead at the time.
Oh, you got to be fucking kidding me.
I mean, you freaking shot him straight up the back with, assault rifle.
This is why I say the SOG is mainly the marshals here. Their little special team they set up is the most responsible for the way things go, because the FBI is told that this is a much more different situation than it actually was.
Right. Well, all they're hearing at this time is there's a dead U.S. Marshal.
Right.
And it was killed on this guy's property.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the next day, the FBI comes in strong. They've got their best snipers sitting in trees surrounding the Weavers' property.
Yeah.
And they have basically been told that their rules of engagement are to shoot any adult with a gun.
Yep.
And
any
they don't
armed adult. They don't even have to have it in their hands. It can just be. They can just be.
And
armed.
the Weavers always have guns.
They always have guns,
and they know that. And they're also told that they don't even have to announce themselves. They don't have to say, "This is the FBI. Drop your weapon." They literally, if they see them through a scope with a gun, they can open up on them.
They can.
Yeah, obviously, and also parts of the rules of engagement were as long as it didn't endanger any children nearby. So as long as it was an adult with a gun and they were in the open with no kids around, they could shoot them.
Now, these rules of engagement were changed for this case.
Yes, which would be one thing that the FBI would change after Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, they changed it back.
Right.
Because, this was crazy. So the guy that actually changed this rules of engagement is got quite a bit of blame on him as well.
Yeah.
The guy that went straight to the top. And
was he the one that got canned? I think there was the guy that was like just below the top FBI, the head of the FBI was canned after this whole shit show.
I don't know if it was him or not. Actually, I don't think it was him, because I remember thinking that's the guy that should have got canned.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to take the blame, so it might as well be his next in line.
One guy that would get a lot of fingers pointed at him that worked for the FBI and was one of the top snipers in the world was a guy named Lon Hariuchi. Now, Timothy McVeigh had a special hatred for this guy because, like we said, Lon Hariuchi did some kind of suspect stuff that we're about to find out at Ruby Ridge.
A lot of these white supremacists did. These white separatists, rather.
Hated this specific FBI sniper but at the same time, he was acting within the bounds of...
He was just following orders.
He was.
And that is what he took an oath to do. Now, he has to pull the trigger, but he's not... His training is not to make decisions. His training is to follow orders.
The shot that really makes this Ruby Ridge thing so tragic was fired by this guy, and it wasn't really it wasn't even really within the crazy rules of engagement that were given to them. Like, this was out of bounds, like the shot that he takes. Timothy McVeigh hated this sniper, Lon Hariuchi, so much. When he would work at gun shows and hand out free cards, he would work at gun shows and he would hand out free cards printed with Hariuchi's name and address in the hope that somebody in the Patriot movement would assassinate him. He wrote hate mail to the sniper suggesting...
Why didn't McVeigh do it?
Oh, I know, right? You're such a badass, right?
Right, you're such a badass. Why don't you make a bomb for him?
He wrote hate mail to the sniper suggesting that what goes around comes around. He considered targeting Hariuchi or a member of his family before he ended up setting off the bomb attack at the federal building. So now we're to that next morning after the first day, when now the FBI's in trees. They got snipers set up all around the camp. They've been given these rules of engagement.
Right.
And Randy, Kevin Harris, and Sarah Weaver are seen leaving the house. Now, they were going to go see Sam. At least Randy was going to go into the shed that they had put Samuel's body in.
Right.
He wanted to see his son one more time.
Yeah.
And so he's going over there, and according to his account, he's going over to the shed where his son is, and he reaches his hand up to hit the latch to open the door, and that's when he's shot through the shoulder.
Yep.
Obviously
shot through the back, kind of came out his armpit.
Yeah, and he was
missed his heart.
And he says he thought that someone had walked up right behind him, and he said, "I knew I was dead. I turned around and I was just going to spit in their face and just to insult them before they killed me and executed me." And he said he turned around and no one was there, and that's when he started running.
Scary.
That's when he started running back to the house. Also, you got Sarah and Kevin Harris running back to the house, and at this point, the mom opens the door,
screaming for them to get inside.
What the hell's going on? Yeah. Randy says, "I've been shot." And
she's also holding the baby.
Holding their infant child. Yeah. What was the baby's name?
I can't remember.
It was an interesting... Elisheba. I believe it's like a Bible name.
Yeah.
She's holding the baby, opening the door for the Weavers to get back inside, and that's when a second shot rings out from Hariuchi, and it goes through...
Kevin.
Some say it goes through the door. One way or another, it strikes Vicky in the head, killing her instantly, and it goes through her head and strikes Kevin Harris in the shoulder.
Yeah.
It bounces through, lands within 2 inches of his heart, nearly killing him.
Yeah.
And so right there, you've got Vicky Weaver dead on the floor. She'd been shot holding her infant.
Killed in front of the rest of her family.
holding her infant daughter.
Sarah's there.
Her dead body is on top of the baby, who is luckily okay. Sarah says that she got hit by like her mom's skull fragments and like brain matter.
Yeah.
There's like brain matter on the baby, like it's all over the place. Her head's basically blown off.
Yeah, and she referenced how it felt. She said that was the first time she realized that they were literally being hunted.
Yeah, Sarah said.
On their own property, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's interviews with her in the PBS documentary are amazing.
Right.
She made me cry. I'm not even going to lie. She made me cry.
Now, the FBI claims that they had not known that Vicky had been killed. Whether Horiuchi knew that he had done this, it seems possible either way. Because sometimes, you know, when if you've ever shot a rifle with a scope, you shoot and it takes a second to realize whether you hit something or not because there's a recoil of the gun and whatnot.
Or maybe he's thinking 2 for 1.
Regardless, he shouldn't have shot towards the door with a bunch of people going into the house.
Right.
You don't shoot into a house when there's kids.
Right.
Period. Like, no matter what your rules of engagement were, they were to not put kids in danger. You shot a woman in the face that was holding a baby.
Yeah.
A couple inches one way or another, and that baby's dead.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's what I mean as far as Horiuchi. There's definitely some blame there as far as no matter what he was
there's also a theory that Vicky was the target.
Yeah.
Because a lot, like we said before,
she was the minds behind.
Vicky is the public speaker for this family right now. Like, you know, they don't, like Lauren said earlier, they don't have telephones. They have no ways of communicating with the outside world. But Vicky is writing letters to federal agents and these people and offices and all this stuff. So she's like the voice.
Right.
So I think there's a theory that people started blaming her. They're like, well, if we take Vicky, Randy's going to crumble. He's going to quit because he's got the mastermind is gone.
Right.
So there is theory, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, as a renowned sniper as he was, you really think he's going to miss that bad if he's aiming for Kevin?
Right.
Looks like he hit his target to me.
Maybe. It's very possible. Now the Weavers are aware that they're being hunted, that they will be shot on sight. They're afraid to leave the house. This begins the real standoff at Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
On where both sides know what's going on. A lot of the Weavers have been unbeknownst to the fact that they've been surrounded for a while. Now they're completely aware. And it looks now at this point, there's been so many different government agencies brought in.
Right.
You know, we talked about how the FBI is now involved. You got the
ATF.
ATF there.
Local police, state police.
It looks basically like MASH. Like just a couple miles down the hill, there's a big opening.
They set up camp. They knew they were going to be there.
There was
for
a
while.
Field, and there were hundreds of government employees and law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
They were all walking around in shorts. They had tents set up.
Yeah, they're out there playing badminton.
Yeah.
No,
seriously.
But they are like it looks like a barbecue.
Yeah.
It does. It looks like they're just
They've
out there
got
chilling.
They've got armored personnel carriers driving through. They look like tanks driving through for this little family up at the top of a mountain.
Yep.
And so now the Weavers are held up. Their mother, her head's blown off. She's sitting in the
supposedly they didn't know that at the time.
Laying on the kitchen floor. They can't even like put her body anywhere because they can't leave the house. They can't take it out to where Sam's body is. And they've got Kevin Harris, who's on the verge of dying. Like he's bleeding out.
Yeah.
He's got a bullet that's lodged a couple inches from his heart.
Right.
He's in agony. He's I guess Randy would come out and later say that there were several times that Kevin Harris had told him, just kill me, just end it. It's so painful. Like
he was even trying to coax Sarah into it.
Right.
She said in one of her interviews, she said that he would try to like sneak her a pistol and just be like, just put me out of my misery.
Right.
Just end this for me. And, you know, none of them did it, luckily, and he actually made it. But now also the police they're still trying to get in contact, so they have no way of calling them, like we said. So they're using a loudspeaker. So they're just shouting things through the forest.
And one of the real crazy things,
they feel like it's taunting them.
The Weavers feel as though the FBI is taunting them because some of the things they're saying, they're saying like, Vicky, we've got pancakes out here. Come out here and bring your kids. We'll have breakfast.
Yeah.
Because the FBI, you kind of have to believe that Horiuchi, even if he knew what he had done, he didn't tell them because it's hard to believe they would be that sadistic as to know that Vicky was dead and that they
I really
would
hope
things
they
like
did
that.
not know.
I really don't think they did.
Because that's some terrible psychological warfare, and I don't really put that past them, though.
I don't.
Put
You're
that
right,
past
because
them.
some of the things that were done at Waco, where they were playing songs meant to drive them crazy. They were like at Waco, I guess they were even playing like on repeat the sounds of rabbits dying.
Yeah.
Into the compound
Just
to try and drive the people nuts.
Loud too, like all hours of the night, couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Shining bright lights in the windows. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're trying to get the Weavers to basically come out and surrender. But the Weavers are still under the impression if they leave these doors or if they get too close to a window, they're going to be killed. They've seen their little brother, their son get killed. They've seen their mother and their wife get killed.
Yep.
And they're not leaving this fucking house. Like scared for their lives.
They're like in lockdown mode. They're staying in the middle of the house.
And not only that, they don't feel like their word's going to get out there. It's going to be, we're going to all be dead, and then it's going to be whatever the FBI said happened.
Yep.
And so, like, their best chance, they think, is just to hold up as long as they can and then hope for the best.
I feel like that was the biggest drive for Randy at this time. Because, I mean, what else does he have to lose, to give up? I mean, I know he has his daughter, Sarah, and Kevin, and then the baby, but they're not going to be shot if he gives himself up. So I feel like he wanted to make a statement here in this part of the standoff.
Right.
He had no choice, but in his mind, but to wait it out.
Now, the law enforcement agencies, they're down. They've got like a roadblock set up that goes to from the road that goes up to the Weaver's house.
Right.
And there's becoming gatherings of all the local friends of the Weavers. A lot of the white supremacists are using this as an opportunity to spread their anti-government hatred. They've got picket signs out there. They're calling, they don't even know that Vicky's dead yet, but they're still holding up signs. They're calling these guys baby killers. Are you proud of yourself? And
yeah, because they do know Sammy's dead.
They do know Sam's dead. They know the dog's been killed, and they know there's this standoff going on, and it's becoming big news at this point. Mm-hmm. And so they get kind of desperate, the law enforcement. They pull in a guy named Bo Greitz, who was a kind of a savior on the far right.
Bo Greitz.
Old Bo Greitz. What's his... we could do an episode on this guy. He's
we could.
An interesting character.
Yeah, he was quite the decorated veteran, but then turned anti-government, and he became like a spokesperson for these...
Right, and he was a decorated war hero.
Separatist. Yeah.
Very interesting guy, very... charismatic.
Very charismatic, yeah.
Almost like an actor.
Yeah.
And he's done interviews, and he played a big part in this thing ending. Obviously, it could never end peacefully after what's already gone on, but somewhat of a better resolve to this whole thing. They convince Bo Greitz to come in and help try and end this standoff peacefully. So they send him up, and he agrees to walk up to the cabin.
He does too. He just walks right up there.
He does. He walks up.
He's like their Billy Graham,
and he yells out, "Randy!" And Randy comes over the window. Bo, that you?
Bo, that you?
And they have a talk, and obviously Randy's still not really open to the idea of ending this standoff, or he doesn't feel safe.
Right.
But they open up the line of communication there between Bo and him.
Yeah. Well, Bo was also a Green Beret too.
Yeah.
So they kind of had that in common. They felt like brothers, you know.
Right. They would end up sending Bo back down, but then Bo would come back up the next day, and they're starting to become a trust line here.
Well, that first meeting, he tells Bo that they killed Vicky, and that's where they first find out
what
too.
happened.
Don't forget about that.
Bo goes back down,
Yeah.
informs the FBI, which the head of the FBI at the time then informs the public.
Yeah.
The media outlets are there, and he has an interview, and then he breaks the news that Vicky has been killed, and there's this large gasp that happens in the crowd, all the media.
Oh, man.
And then it's on. It's on. Like, all of the white supremacist guys are then flooding up to this thing. They're angry. There's almost
not just guys, women, families, teenagers. They're holding up signs of protest and Nazi salutes.
There's
and they're calling
almost
them women and baby killers.
It's amazing there wasn't violence that happened down there at that gathering.
We could do infiltrate an army camp. I mean, like, what were they going to do?
Exactly.
But yeah, it was crazy then. Then the pressure was really on to make a decision.
Right.
You know,
they couldn't. At this point, the word was out that the FBI had fucked up, and they couldn't. They probably still had it in their cards to just like burn down this house. They've done it. They've done it before. We forgot to mention the leader of the order, Bob Matthews. When they finally caught up with him, there was a standoff that happened in a cabin, kind of similar.
Right. They burned him out.
Burned him out, man. They shot in incendiary rounds, burned it down. Obviously, he was killed in the fire.
Like Grand Theft Auto, flaming bullets.
I'm sure this was still within their cards to just go, you know what? Before this thing gets out of hand, and before we'll keep it tight knit to where it's within our agency, really knows the truth, and it doesn't get out to the public. Now the cat's out of the bag. People know Sam's been killed. They know Vicky's been killed.
Yep.
And this looks real bad on the FBI, no matter how it ends. But if it ends to where the rest of the family is killed, it's going to be real bad.
Yeah.
So they've got to find a way to end this peacefully, and they're really dependent on Bo Greitz to get Randy to basically give up and come out of the cabin.
He was the perfect guy to do it.
Yeah, and Bo Greitz goes back up, and he at least gets Randy to give the stepson
Kevin Harris.
Yeah, he goes up and he goes, you know what? You need to hand over Kevin Harris. He's going to die in here.
Yep.
He's dying. Give him to us. I'll make sure he gets down safely and gets treatment.
Yeah. And he did.
And so Randy gives Kevin Harris. He brings him down. They put him in a stretcher. They take him away for treatment.
Bo Gritz was kind of the shit, man.
He was.
He just kind of, they did what he said, both sides.
Right.
He just rolled up in there like damn Messiah.
Right. Badass mustache too.
Right.
So they'd end up depending on Bo Gritz even more. Bo finally, basically, the way this whole thing ends is Bo Gritz goes up there. Randy tells him, we've decided, I've talked to the girls. We're not coming out of here. They're going to have to kill us all. And Bo, in a moment of heroic, I guess just pitches him and says, you know what? You can't do this to your daughters. This isn't right. Randy, you need to give this thing up, and I'll make sure that you and your daughters get out of here safely. And Randy said, I guess he doesn't even turn around. He just tells his daughters.
He probably just went up there, knocked on the door, and said, "Get your ass down this hill, motherfucker.
You don't get out of this door in 10 seconds."
All right, Bo.
Yeah, so
Randy
basically
went out kicking.
He tells Sarah to get the stuff.
Yeah.
And they make their way down. And Sarah said that when she left the door, she was fully expected to be shot. She thought she was going to be killed.
Yeah, they still thought they were being led to their deaths.
Yep. And when they got down there, they saw how big this thing had gotten. They saw the field filled with guys in shorts playing badminton and the tanks and shit and how crazy it had gotten. And Randy's crying about his wife and how beautiful she was. And it was really just a sad.
Yeah. Oh, God. When he said that on the stretcher, he said, "I wish I'd have never cut in on that dance." He said, "I wish I'd have just let my buddy have her. She'd still be alive." I was like, oh, dude.
Right.
That's hard. That's harsh.
Yeah. So, I mean, it all, at least it ended there. And there was a lot of lessons to be. Yeah. A lot of stuff was changed because of Ruby Ridge, and it's still one of those things that a lot of people on the right, the radical right, a lot of racists call out, anti-government people, they call out Ruby Ridge.
Well, it did change. Bring a lot of good change.
There was a lot of good change. There was a lot of stubbornness on both sides to where this thing never had to get to where it was. A lot of ego involved.
Yeah.
That's one thing that drives me crazy is when law enforcement lets ego take over instead of the law. You know what I mean?
Right.
They killed one of our guys. I get it.
Yeah.
No one wants to see a cop killed or
but it still deserves investigation. It still deserves a trial for
ultimately, that. It was from the Weaver standpoint, that was self-defense. They had people in camo fatigues with rifles come up to their house and kill their dog.
Yep.
And a 14-year-old kid ended up dead over it. That was 100% would hold up in court and ended up holding up in court.
It did.
Because
the children won a $3.1 million supplement.
Yeah, in August of 1995, the government settled out of court with the Weavers, paying Randy $3.1 million, $1 million to each child and $100,000 to Randy, after it was decided that it was self-defense and that they were treated wrongly in this whole thing.
That's not enough for Randy.
Right.
That's not enough. That's pocket change for what they did. It took his wife and his son.
I don't think any amount of money could have made up for it, though. And when you think that, once again, like we brought up earlier, this was all over a couple of sawed-off shotguns. Randy was not part of the order. He wasn't going out and bombing anyone. Nope. He had not done any.
He wasn't even part of the Aryan Nation, technically.
Honestly, not showing up for the indictment, not showing up for the court date was a bigger offense than the actual offense in the first place.
Yeah.
Had he showed up, he probably would have gotten a slap on the wrist for the whole shotgun thing.
Yeah.
You know?
But even if he'd have showed up, it would have been the wrong day.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Even if he wanted to show up, he would have been a month off.
Yeah. In 1997, FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi, who we had talked about, he would end up being charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of Vicki Weaver. So, like we said, even with the rules of engagement that he did the wrong thing, shooting into a home like that at the front door, shooting at people. You just don't do that. In 2001, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals allowed the prosecution to go forward against Horiuchi, meaning federal agents are not immune from the state prosecution. But of course,
because that was his defense. He was like, I'm a federal employee. He's like, I'm not a state. You know, the state can't touch me.
Yeah,
they can,
but they can't because, however, the charges would end up later being dropped, and no one is convicted in connection with the shooting of Vicki Weaver.
Well, then there's that.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Right.
Damn it, sniper privilege.
Yeah, so it's a crazy thing, and some of the changes that were brought about would end up being better communication between law enforcement agencies. We talked about the breakdown between the marshals and their special operations group and the FBI. The communication, that initial gunfire shootout that happened with Sam being killed and them going and telling the FBI that they had one of their guys get killed by the Weavers and not relaying the information properly, and that they were up there and this was a self-defense case. Led to the snipers being put in trees, to the rules of engagement being fire on anyone that has a gun, And that's how this whole shit show happened. So they ended up getting better communication and working on that. There was also no longer the ability to change the rules of engagement on the fly like that from, announce yourself. And if they point a gun at you, kill them, to just anybody holding a gun, kill them.
Yeah.
They no longer were able to do that. Also, we talked about some of the FBI higher ups in the FBI were canned because of this. One thing that is evidence of the change that came about from Ruby Ridge that I found really interesting. I found this story of a guy named John Joe Gray, who was involved in a 1999 felony assault charge against him. Basically, what happened was he was driving in a town in Texas, and he was pulled over by a trooper during a traffic stop, and he got into a physical exchange with this guy. He ends up biting the trooper, right?
I guess. I don't know the story. You snuck this in on me.
Well, it's just, to me, this is evidence of change that happened because of Ruby Ridge.
All right, I'm intrigued. He's
positive or not?
He bit a cop.
He bit a cop during a traffic stop gone wrong. He then jumped his bail after the arrest and held up he had a 47-acre property with fences all around, no running water, no electricity, very similar to Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
Plenty of guns, and challenged the authorities to come in and arrest him on the third-degree felony warrant arrest that had been issued to him.
Yeah.
And this standoff ended up lasting 15 years. The police looked at it as though,
they're just passing each other on the road.
Well, no.
Hey, John.
Basically, they said they basically relegated it to, like, if he left his property, we're getting him. As long as he stays on his stupid property with no water and no electricity, we're going to look at this as his sentence. And so they said that, like, had he gone to court like he was supposed to, the most they could have gotten him with was 10 years, and they said that probably wasn't even likely that he was going to get 10 years. He ended up spending 15 years not being able to leave his property, and he's walking around with his beard. He's got his family members there.
So how did it end?
That's how it ended. They went 15 years. They dropped the charges against him in 19. They're
just like, this is just too much.
In 2016,
we can't fucking watch this guy anymore.
January of 2016, after 15 years, they would end up finally just dropping the charges. Then he stopped. And then it's funny, he couldn't let it end there.
Oh no.
Old John Joe Gray decided,
at this point, he's got nothing better to do.
They're not going to do shit to me. I'm on my property. He stops paying his taxes, and now they want him for tax evasion.
He's probably sitting on his front porch in a rocking chair, both middle fingers in the air.
Right? Yeah, so these are the things, you can look at it positive or not, depending on which side you're on, but it's just kind of funny that it's obviously Ruby Ridge had an effect in that. They don't like the bad PR that came about from Ruby Ridge and from Waco, and so now when one of these old bitter standoffs happen, they just let the guy stay on his property. You leave that property, we're getting your ass, but we're not going to go in there and set your place on fire and shoot your family and shit.
Wow.
So I just find that kind of funny.
That is funny.
So that's Ruby Ridge. Any last thoughts on it? Was it? It was my choice. I watched that documentary a while ago, and I thought you might enjoy studying. Did you enjoy?
I did.
Learning about
I did not enjoy the book.
Oh, okay. You found a book that you didn't like?
No, I did not like it because it was just it's like he only interviewed the federal agents and the marshals.
Oh, okay.
The book was so one-sided; it totally twisted my view of the entire case because I listened to the book first, and I shouldn't have. Then I go back and I read articles. And I actually listened to the book twice, so I was pretty dead set on this was the story, right? Then I go back and watch, I watched the PBS documentary, I watched another one, and then read some articles, and I'm like, this book is shit. It's absolutely shit. But it's called Ruby Ridge and Waco: The History and Legacy of the Federal by Charles River Editors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you told me it wasn't all that great. I was kind of glad I didn't get it because I just kind of...
He's got 2 books on Audible, and one is just about Ruby Ridge, and the other one's Ruby Ridge and Waco, and it's a different story. If you want to hear straight up U.S. Marshal, probably first gen story,
right?
These same marshals were in these documentaries that we watched saying something different, and then this guy, he makes the Weavers out to be crazy people, conspiracists and extreme racist, and it's. Now, they may have been racist, but they weren't criminals.
I think it's safe to say they were racist.
Yeah.
Definitely. They believe the white race to be superior and they were, I think if you're a white separatist, you're just a racist, And he's hanging out the Aryan nations. Definitely. However, in this country, we still do have the right to go move to the mountains and say some dumb shit and believe some dumb shit as long as you're not harming others and actively doing things like the Order was doing.
Yeah.
It wasn't right what happened to the Weavers. I think we can all agree on that. You don't have to like them as people or agree with their beliefs, But at the same time, what the government did was not right.
And also,
they even admit it. They won in court. You know, the Weavers won in court. That tells you everything you need to know.
Well, and they had enough self-realization to be like, okay, we believe this way, and we don't want to be around people different than us, so we're going to live way out in the middle of fucking nowhere and not bother anybody.
Literally move.
I think that's the best way to be a racist. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Go live somewhere, and that's what they did.
We don't like you. You don't like us. Just get lost.
Yeah, just get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best way to live. Live by yourself. Rely on yourself. Okay, fine.
Yep.
Stay up there. Don't bother nobody. We'll leave you alone. You leave us alone.
Right.
Okay. Like, it's just when you think about the offenses, what he did on paper, and then how it ended.
Right.
It blows your mind.
Yep.
Absolutely blows your mind.
From point A to point B, how the fuck did we get there?
Yeah.
It's like 2 shot-off shotguns.
Point A to point Z.
Right.
Like, it's just off the charts.
2 sawed-off shotguns to his wife being shot in the face on her own doorstep, holding a baby.
Can't even go outside your own house.
The 14-year-old son being killed, and the dog, and just not good.
24-hour surveillance.
Not good. Luckily,
Unreal.
I mean, Sarah, she's now living on a farm in Montana. She doesn't talk to her father, Randy, anymore. And she says that she's a born-again Christian. She's forgiven all the people that were involved in this, even the sniper that shot her mom.
Yeah.
She's forgiven. Randy,
she said she finally read the New Testament, so there's that.
I don't know where I was going with that, but...
She's doing well. She seems to be doing well, and she's...
But no, where I was going was that she says that she's glad that at least some good came from it, and that...
That's what I was going to say.
A lot of people learned... we're keeping a closer eye on...
Her family didn't die for nothing.
Right.
Basically.
Stuff has been changed because of the Ruby Ridge incident.
Absolutely.
So that's where we're going to end this, and that, bad things can happen, but sometimes positive comes out of it, I guess.
That's right.
They didn't die in vain, I guess.
Right.
Whereas sometimes the FBI was able to burn down. I'm sure that a lot of times they burned down people and no one ever got their word.
No one even know.
They didn't get to get their say in it. It was just, you're dead.
We don't even know their names.
Right. Just gone.
Yeah. But we really enjoyed this case. Like, we definitely highly recommend those documentaries.
Yep.
Not the book, though. Don't waste your time with that book.
Right.
All right, creepers. That's it. That's all of it. That's all the old episode. Now we're back to normal time. Go check us out. Patreon.com/True Crime Guys. True Crime Guys on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you like to use and waste your time on. Also, you can follow me personally at @AndI'mMichael on Instagram and on Twitter. All right, True Crime Guys closed group on Facebook. Other than that, guys, keep creeping. We'll see you next week for another freebie episode. Peace out. Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.